Welcome to the work session of the Niagara Falls Water Board, July 15th, 2024. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for being here. If you have a cell phone, we'll ask that you put it on silent, please. If there's no interruption. Call the roll, please.
Board Member Askelaar?
Here.
Chairman Forster?
Here.
Board Member Kimball?
Here.
Board Member Larkin?
Present.
Board Member Siriani?
Here. We have any letters and communications, Mr. Costello?
Mr. Chairman, there are 3 items in the packet that constitute letters and communications. One is a letter from the New York State Park Police commending Water Board staff for their response to a water issue earlier this year. One is the monthly COVID wastewater surveillance update memorandum. The Water Board continues to participate in that program. And the last is the wastewater treatment plant order on consent, second quarter 2024 quarterly progress report.
Thank you, Mr. Costello. Any board member have any questions on the correspondence?
None.
Good. Ready? Let's go over to the prior minute meeting if the board wants to take a look at those. What page is that?
37.
37?
Mhm.
Thank you. Any marked changes for the prior minute meeting?
Looks good to me.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Yeah, we'll do it at the next, at the general.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we're at the
Work session.
Mr. Costello, the man of many hats, Executive Director and General Counsel.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I continue to keep the board updated with weekly updates on matters. Big focuses moving forward as we complete July and move into August are going to be the budget process. Neither Mr. Smith nor I have led a water board budget creation and assembly, but we're looking forward to really getting in there and getting to the meat of it with budget worksheets to be distributed to department heads early in August. Another large focus is going to be the RFP for wastewater treatment plant engineering services in connection with the new consent order and the 30% design report. And then an RFP for the next phase of the LaSalle SSES related to the consent order in that area. On the legal front, the only notable update is dismissal of some of the remaining claims related to Love Canal against the Water Board by Judge Sedita. There are still some matters on appeal, but if you'd like further details on those, we should discuss them in executive session.
Thank you. Any board member have any questions for General Counsel or the Executive Director?
None.
None being heard. We'll go over to Mr. Conti, please, operations.
Board members, Mr. Chairman, good evening. I don't know if anyone is aware, but we have intermediate pump number 1 at the wastewater treatment plant back in service. That was very successful, the rebuild of that. And I spoke briefly with our contact at Seaward today, and I know he's waiting for additional quotes for the rebuild of the second rotating element to continue with pump number 2. I told him I would expect those by next Monday, so I can update you on that. The scrubber room project here at the water treatment plant is progressing. The room has been emptied of all previous equipment. Danforth has been in to pour the pad. The room has been painted. And our tradesperson from our mason is doing some repairs on the floor. And we have also done a walkthrough on Project 5. It's my understanding that we have, this is at the wastewater plant. We have the 2 transformers. I believe they are at Ferguson's. And we have decided how that project is going to proceed. And I'm going to let Mr. Williamson fill you in on that.
Very good. Any board member have any questions for Mr. Conti?
No.
None. Thank you, David. What do you have on the outside? Anything? Got it. Thank you. Mr. Williamson in engineering?
Good evening. We received a proposal for structural engineering services from J.M. Davidson for the wastewater treatment plant, flock tank, concrete walkways. Instead of repairing deteriorated concrete walkways, we're looking at installing steel walkways instead. And we have a resolution in the packet for vote next week. As Dave mentioned on project number 5, we're looking at installing the transformers directly at the power center as originally planned. We're planning on taking the transformers down through an access way in the back behind the sludge building. We're going to need to demo some duct work in the mechanical room and also the south wall of the electrical room to get the transformers in. But by placing the transformer directly at the power center, we're going to have a huge cost savings with conduit installation and wiring. So we're going to meet with Ferguson soon and discuss that further. And the only other thing that I have is once again, we had no speedies permit violations at the wastewater plant in June.
Do you have a ballpark idea on the cost savings?
Well, if it's originally as specified, it should be no increase because there's no change order. We're doing exactly as stated.
Well, they said there'd be a huge saving.
What, compared to the change order, they're talking about moving them outside and then, and also on the first floor. But each of those, there's, conduit run and all that.
Yeah.
Should be no increase in their proposal.
Good.
And I believe we're gonna do demo work. Is that correct? Or we're gonna put that out for bid. Okay, so there might be a little bit of additional to do that, not on purpose.
So, Mr. Williamson, on project 5, the transformers were originally going to be in close proximity to where the existing transformers are, right?
They were gonna replace them, swap them. Yeah,
And then it was talked about that the transformers you'd have to open up a floor,
right,
right?
yeah,
And put these transformers in place.
sure,
And then it went from that to a big project, then to the outside.
yeah.
Right? Putting a pad and a retention
Mhm.
area. Now we're back to the original spot. What changed?
Not 100% certain. I know at one time they talked about taking it down the access way, but I don't know why that was thrown to the side. I mean, it's very feasible. Just getting some ductwork out of there and knocking a wall down. It's kind of a direct route.
I think at last month's meeting, I talked about project 3 briefly.
Yeah.
Has there been any updates on project 3 at all?
I've seen some additional closeout documentation. Not sure what else they owe us. But like I said, I sent something, they signed something, said they're 100% complete. They went to their bonding company.
Mr. Costello, do you have anything on project 3?
I do not have anything readily at hand, but I will check on the status of the additional scope of work for the belt filter press rehab that was discussed and I believe awarded. I'll find out what's going on with that and be ready to report for next week.
Thank you. One last thing. So, the concrete walkways at the basins.
Yeah.
That's J.M. Davidson.
Right.
Right. We've gone around with that quite a few times too, right?
Yeah, that's been hanging out there, but we're trying to save costs because once they do the work.
Well, understandable. Did we get the safety rails up, on the basins?
I don't think they're all, I know at least a couple of basins. They might have maybe one more basin to do.
Are we still waiting for rehab, for them to be?
They're installing the basins as the work is completed by basin.
Got it.
So many of the railings that were fabricated are installed, some remain.
Super. Thank you. Any questions, any other questions the board member have for Mr. Williamson?
Yes, Mr. Williamson.
Yes, hi.
These walkways,
Yes.
you mentioned putting steel in. Is there any other material that we can use? Because eventually steel
Yeah,
rust if we're gonna
right.
put the money into it.
Right. There
Have
could
you
be a
looked at it?
FRP. That'll be up to the engineer. We're gonna have discussions with them. Well, first we have to set the resolution. But FRP. It's-
So that's not you haven't decided.
No,
it's
no,
gonna
no,
be steel.
no. We haven't-
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't assembled.
It's in the
plan yet
design
for that.
stage.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that. I'm sure that'll be considered.
Thank you.
Yep, nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
Mr. San Lorenzo, personnel, please. Thank
44.
you.
Good evening. On today's sheet, if you look at personnel action, line item 1, that would be a CDT trainee for distribution and collection. And that corresponds with part D, Chris Ferris, who's a CDT trainee who's leaving. So this would be a replacement for that. Number 2 is an operator trainee for the wastewater treatment plant. This would be filled if a vacancy occurred. And with the few postings we had up on the board, we did get internal candidates who would be leaving wastewater treatment plant operations if they were to accept those positions. So in that case, we'd be a little ahead on it. If not, then we wouldn't fill them. And we also have a few possible military leaves coming up. Number 3 is control maintenance mechanic. And that would be here at the water treatment plant. Mr. Conti is in charge of that one. So, his statement was the equipment at the water treatment plants reaching and exceeding life. And you just talked about that pump. And there's only 2 CMMs at this plant. That was him. If there's any questions on that, as far as that goes, Mr. Conti would be able to explain the necessity of that. Part B, Kim Condon is a retired, he's temporary part-time operator with his license. He works maybe 8-10 hours a week. And he's filled in a lot. He hasn't had an increase since he started maybe 1.5 years ago. And he's getting fewer hours now because the operator trainees are becoming operators and are able to work shift work. That would be part B. And then in D, we have 1 CDT trainee leaving, and then good news, Mr. Lewis. He obtained his license as an operator and a certificate. So finished all the requirements, received a raise, and is now able to work shift work here at the water treatment plant. So that's what we have.
Any board member have questions for personnel?
Yeah.
I would like to speak with Mr. Conti real quick on this control maintenance mechanic.
Dave?
Hi, just a real quick question for you, Dave. So you're saying that, with the reaching and exceeding lifestyle, are any of these pieces about to be replaced at any point, this equipment?
So we have high lift pump number 2 apart and out of service.
Okay,
After viewing the condition of the rotating element and the impellers and the casing that holds that pump assembly, I would not be doing the board a service if I didn't expect the other 9 pumps to be in the same condition. So what I'm telling you is I think we're going to be doing this 9 more times.
now, are people currently, you said there's 2 people now, are they currently working a lot of overtime or?
They are not working a lot of overtime.
Okay.
I would like to transition from having to outsource this work to be able to do it in-house.
Okay, so we are currently outsourcing this and we're paying contractors to do it.
Yes,
And will there be a savings do you see with bringing it in-house?
I would say yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Conti, you can say that because I have a question for you.
Yes.
Let's go to B here. Kim, is it, how do you say his last name?
Okay.
Condon?
Yes.
Yeah. So, the board reduced the salary for hourly rate for part-time employees from $35 to $30 an hour last year. Okay? And we did that for a lot of reasons. One, to save costs, and two, some were getting paid 35 and some were getting paid 30. So we decided we're gonna make everybody 30. Now we're going back up to 35. Now, Mr. Conti, it's my understanding you have your 2A license as well.
I have a 1A license.
You have a 1A, you do not have a 2A.
It supersedes it 2A.
Okay? So could we use your certificate? For the water plant as well?
It would be a question of whether I would come in and work the shift. It's not a question of whether you would use my certificate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I'm trying to make some comparison, because at the wastewater plant, as we know, right? There's nobody in the union that has a class 3 license, right?
Correct.
So since 2018, the water boards had a contract. So originally, we were paying the contractor $145 an hour, right? Originally. I think that's when Jim Perry was in the administrative services division. I ended up talking to Fred Casper, who I've known for 45 years, who came out of retirement, who has a class 3 license. And he did it for $85.
Class 4.
Right. I mean, class 4. He
Yeah.
did it for $85 at 20 hours a week. So we have the similar problem at the wastewater plant, right? We have nobody that's licensed. Other than here, we have one person,
Fred and I.
and then you, and Fred, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
A question on that.
Yes.
Because if I look farther down to Joe Lewis, 2A operator license, just like this Kim Condit. And he's making 2363. What is the difference there? Why are we going up to 35 when, just so I understand?
Joe's a full-time union employee,
Okay,
and he's shift work, he's 35 or 40, whatever his shift is. This gentleman is retired and he's just there part-time to fill in some shifts. And because there's only one person here at a time, we need someone who's licensed. And the trainees that are here are not licensed yet. They've been doing a good job though, because if they got to afford to, they've already gotten this.
Yes.
okay, no, I understood that part, but why do we gotta go from 30 to 35? I mean, who created that number?
I did.
Is there any indication
And
from
My-
Kim Condon?
my thought process on that was that he has been very effective in helping us out, filling shifts during the time when we have trainees that aren't available to work off shifts, such as an afternoon shift, a midnight shift, or a weekend shift. And Kim has been very amenable to coming in and filling shifts when we weren't able to fill them with a licensed operator. That was my only thought process.
Can you roll that up into what Nick was saying? It's kind of inconsistent. Okay, I don't have no
Understood.
more questions.
I do have a question now. So is he the only part-time person we're considering going up to 35 for?
I believe so. Yes.
West.
Yeah,
And that-
like I said, it's interesting. We just took it from 35 to 30, now we're going back up to 35.
Has he said anything about resigning if he's not offered this? Has he made any indication that he would prefer not to work at 30? I'm just trying to understand where we're going with this one.
I don't believe so.
When you say hours, how many hours a week are we talking?
I don't believe it's in hours a week. I think he has very limited hours.
Because it says receiving fewer, are we talking like 5-6 hours a week, or are we talking about?
It was 8, so he's usually.
I don't even believe it's that much. It might be a couple of shifts a month.
Okay, so maybe 16 hours a month we're talking? All right, Just trying to understand.
Any other board member have any questions either for personnel or for Mr. Conti?
Yeah, now how many other individuals do we have working at $30 an hour?
That I'm not sure. All right.
Well, can you come back and let us know at the next
Yeah, I
meeting?
will. I will. It was probably 5 or 6.
All right, send the board an email on how many folks, yeah.
I want to know how many hours each person works.
Yeah, I'll see I'll put how many hours a week on average and what their wage is.
And then you also said this individual came in on extra shifts when you could not find someone. Could you also indicate those dates and times when that took place?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other,
So now that Joe Lewis has the same license, will that help alleviate the need of having to have Mr. Condon fill in?
Yes,
Yes.
every time a trainee advances to operator status, gaining his license, that will help with that situation.
How many sorry, excuse me, how many operators do we have with that, grade 2A?
I believe there are 6 now. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Jason might
Well,
be.
bring all that information with the other information for next week. Or the email, like
I'll
you
get it,
said.
I'll get it to you by email and that way we don't have to read both.
Right.
good, thank you.
Thanks.
Is Mr. Joyce here?
Mr. Joyce is not here. I think he was
We have
unable to
anything?
be present. Nobody from IT was able to be present this
Okay, do
evening.
we have any info
Yes.
from IT?
I can say I received a copy of the weekly CISA cybersecurity scans, and once again, no critical vulnerabilities.
Got it, thank you.
So the systems are secure.
Thank you, Mr. Costello. Mr. Smith in finance, please.
Good evening. So this is, I started with the organization back on May 28th, so this is my 8th week with the organization.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got my new nameplate there, so I guess it's official. I've been working to catch up with various different activities, mostly with regards to various journal entries, bank reconciliations, and second quarter SIU billing. We are currently up to date with our accounts payable and our debt service. We have another check run that will be done this week for our accounts payable, but we are, currently up to date in that regard. I guess earlier or late last week on Friday, I was informed of some glitches, is the way it was described to me with regard to our with regard to our billing system with our New World ERP accounting system. Lisa Landers kind of informed me of that. So we got on the phone with the help team over at New World. And they were, I guess the issue was that they were kind of surprised with regard to some patches that were not installed in our system. But we were informed that, in fact, I know that a patch was installed earlier today. And so we're working to get those glitches resolved. What else? I guess we recently sent in some documentation to update the check signings and various other activities for Sean and myself with regard to our banking activities. So I guess there's like a credit card. I'll have access to that system now. And I know David Conti is waiting on his credit card system, so we can get that resolved for him. The only other issue I'd like to bring up, we did receive a warrant for our New York State unemployment. There was a payment due of $39,000. The warrant was dated, the warrant was for New York State unemployment for the fourth quarter 2023 and the first quarter 2024. So I went ahead and paid that warrant in late June. And I've got to get other information with regard to how that warrant was computed. Because, like I said, it was for the fourth quarter 2003 and the first quarter 2024. I was, I kind of went back and looked at our New York State unemployment tax filings, which is done quarterly, and we haven't been paying any amounts in the last couple of years. I was informed that we had the reason for that was because we had a large credit. So, I'll look into, the status of that. I'll get all the details with regards to, why we were served with that warrant, and we'll get that resolved. I hope to be able to report to you, in the next board meeting with regard to that.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any board member have any questions for finance?
I do, real quick. So you said that with our New World that we haven't had some patching done. Is that our responsibility, or do we have New World do the patching?
Well, we went to the cloud with our New
Right.
World system, I guess, fairly recently.
Yeah, I think it was like in 2021.
Right. And so when we were on, I guess it was our understanding that those patches should be done automatically.
Right.
And then when we were on the phone with the help desk over on Friday at New World, he was kind of surprised that some of these patches had not been, we were behind on our patches. And so he was going to go to his supervisor and, find out, what for the reason behind that. And, we were informed that he was going to put this on give it their highest priority. And like I said, this morning, I did find out that some patches were installed. And so, tomorrow, I think I'll get on the phone again with Lisa and contact them and just find out what the status is.
We should have an account rep then if we still are using service phone. Do we know the name of our account rep? Or do we have somebody that we can contact directly?
There is somebody at the, we do have an account rep over there, but I guess there's one individual over there that Lisa has worked with frequently. And so, we'll get in touch with him.
The only other question I had was with regards to this New York State. So if we had a large credit, how far back you don't have any information quite yet on it, but Sean, maybe, do you know anything about it?
I know that at one time there was a six-figure unemployment insurance credit because we
Okay.
had been apparently calculating it wrong years ago.
Okay,
Then I believe Brian had ceased making payments, direct payments to,
correct.
buy down the credit. What I suspect happened is the credit was exhausted and we never got back into the habit of making the appropriate payments.
Gotcha.
Or they thought that there was still credit left. They received the notices and, disregarded them, assuming that the credit would cover them.
Okay.
I don't have more facts than that, but I do know that because we've now paid it, we're good with the state and the warrant would not be an issue. But obviously we need to figure out how to put together a system that will make sure we're paying the proper amount, not too much and not too little.
Okay.
And like I said, the New York State unemployment is paid quarterly, and our payroll service paychecks would normally take care of that. So I'll, when I do get more detail as to, the history behind all this, I'll contact paychecks, and then it should just be an automatic quarterly process.
All right, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other board member have any questions for finance? Thank you, Mr. Smith. The O and M report is, Mr. Costello made some changes to it. You know, that's a pretty, extensive report that's done monthly. Talks about all kinds of usages and different reports and different divisions. Very helpful information.
And the changes, just so the board is clear, are to formatting and making it a uniform font and trying to make things a little more readable by changing some pages instead of portrait to landscape, things like that. So the content is the same. The sections are the same, just perhaps a little renumbered or reorganized.
Either, either Mr. Williamson or Mr. Costello, in the O and M report, the town of Niagara sewer flow monitoring. So that agreement, the current agreement expires on December 31st of 2024.
Yes,
Has there been any other conversations with the town of Niagara?
yes. This past week, I followed up with their attorney. Communication error, but we have information that we had requested. We received it on Friday to review. And we're also discussing with the town of Niagara, moving the second flow monitoring period from September to August, which would address some of the concerns the town has raised.
That was from Mr. Risman.
Yes,
Would you send that correspondence to me?
certainly.
As a matter of fact, just CC the board.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Costello, in the O and M report, is there, for tracking on hypochlorite?
There is.
What page, do you know? Is it,
So on page 59 of the packet,
thank you. 59?
yes. The column second from the right. NaOCl is sodium hypochlorite. And for comparison purposes, this June, 284,640 gallons. The next page in the report is last year's. And we used only 103,000 gallons last year.
You know, that's something for you, Mr. Smith, to maybe to keep an eye on. You know, when you look at personnel and you look at our cost of chemicals, you know, it equates to 67% of our budget. You know, it's one of the things that, you know, that fell hard on the water board and the ratepayers in the last couple of years, right after COVID. You know, our chlorine went from 47 cents a gallon, because that's how we purchase it. That's how it's bid. To what? $2.10 a gallon. So, you know, we saw an increase in chemical usage here, well over 200%. You know, so coupled with those type of increases, this is why, you know, we saw that there were some rates that were raised in 2 years that were kind of high, particularly right after COVID, because everything went through the roof. So we like to, and certainly I do, and I'm sure the rest of the board will agree, like to keep an eye on that hypochlorite line. I think it was one year we had increased it up to $9 million. Right? There was a given day at the wastewater treatment plant, we used 74,000 gallons. So figure that out at $2 a gallon. It's not hard to figure out, right? Your numbers got it. It can be very expensive for us. Well, we get it from Olin right down the street, and it didn't make a difference on the cost. All right, it just went through the roof. I mean, years ago, they used to bring in a rail car, but that's no longer the case. That's one of the problems with a plant that was put online in the 1970s. Right? Just, old, I don't want to say inefficient, but it's maximum efficiency, but it's very costly to operate. Very, very costly.
And that, when that went up 150 to 200%, what is that in dollars?
Well, our budget line went from, I think our budget line, don't hold me to it, it went from about 4 million to 9. So it's easy to figure it out. $300,000 equates to about a 1% increase.
It was
Right.
like close to 6 million that went up, I think.
6 months, okay.
I'm
I don't need an exact.
Yeah,
number,
9
just-
million.
I didn't know what type
No,
of
we
money
put
you were
9 million.
talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So $300,000 increase equals about 1%. Don't forget, folks, when the great idea of the Niagara Falls Water Board inception in 2002, all right? Great idea to create the legislation for the water board, separate and divorce from the city. All right? We have nothing to do with the city of Niagara Falls, other than the fact we're located here. We're public authority. That's what we are. We have nothing to do with Niagara Falls. But when they did the legislation, when we created the water board, you know what they did? They gave us a credit card with $110 million in debt on it. All right. So here's what they said in 2002. Here's the new name. You're called the Niagara Falls Water Board, and here's $110 million in debt. So that debt service now is about 75 million, Mr. Smith, close to that, our debt service. Okay, probably pretty close, right? And probably pretty close. So figure this out. Take $300,000. How many times does it goes in $7 million? Pardon? Yeah. 22 times? So just figure that if we didn't have $75 million in debt service compounded yearly, the rates in the city would be down 22%. That's the toughest thing that this board faces. Is a debt service. It was inherited. We'd have some of the lowest water and sewer rates in the country. But no, it didn't happen. We're paying debt service and we're going to pay it until probably long before any of us can ever figure it out. But that's what it equates to.
Mr.
Because
Chairman,
that's what our debt service is. And one of the big issues that also becomes for us, so for the last 3 years, what have we been looking for? We've been looking for funding for a new wastewater treatment plant. You know why? Because we can't borrow the money. We can't borrow $250 million when we have $75 million in debt service now. But guess what? If we didn't have $75 million in debt service, we may be able to, the water board, there's a possibility we could finance. But that's one of the biggest hinders of the separation between the water board when it worked for the city and today. That's the big difference, is the debt service. It's not hard to figure out, folks, if you go to page 5. Personnel is 41%, chemicals are 26%, waste removal are 7%, utilities are 8%, administrative expenses are at 5%, insurance is at 2%, and other operational costs are at 11%. Not hard to figure out. Not a lot left in the pie.
What's the projection to pay that off, and what interest rate do we pay on something like that?
I wouldn't know. That would be,
I'm curious, just, Michael, when you get a chance.
Go for a lower interest rate on this?
it could even be zero, but it doesn't make a difference. If it's $75 million at zero, it's $75 million.
Yeah, I'd just like to know
At
that number.
2%. Yeah, no, I understand. But those are numbers. Those are real numbers.
We did refinance some debt 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Most of the debt is roughly 20-year terms. We retire some debt every year. On the chemicals, I do have some statistics that are readily at hand for me. In 2018, our total chemical budget for all the different chemicals was 3.3 million, or 9.6% of the overall budget. In 2023, that had increased to 11 million and over 26% of the budget. The 2021 bid price for sodium hypochlorite was 39 cents a gallon. 2022, $1.18 per gallon. 2023, $2.38 per gallon. Our 2024 price has gone down a bit, but it just shows the escalation in chemical costs. And why getting a plant that's not so dependent on large quantities of sodium hypochlorite would be helpful.
And it was struggle to get somebody even bid it. Well,
Yes.
Yeah.
So the closure of Oxy
Yeah,
was
it'd be big.
problematic because it removed one producer from the market. We used to at least have two producers, so we'd get more bids, but now Olin's the only game in town.
We'll go to Mr. Ricardo and safety, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Last week, we presented the updated version of the emergency action plan. We had 4 sessions on July 8th and 9th, and this was the emergency action plan, the EAP plan that Dave Conti and Mike Eagler worked on. We presented it to the employees, went over very well. We'll probably have another one for those employees that couldn't make it. We had very good attendance, probably at least 80% of the employees attended one of the sessions. Today, we had 10 employees take the flag person training class so that they're certified in the directing traffic around any of our work sites. So we have 10 people, 10 of our employees have a 4-year certification, and that came from PERMA today, and that was at no cost to us here. Also, we have the safety committee meeting on Wednesday, and I'm sure there'll be some more issues coming out of the safety committee Wednesday.
Good stuff. Any board member have any questions for Mr. Ricardo on safety?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Costello, let's go into resolutions, please.
The first resolution is 2024-07001 at page 76 of the packet, procurement of water treatment plant lead high lift pump.
Any board member have any questions on resolution 2024-07-001?
Straightforward. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Costello.
The next resolution is at page 80 of the packet, 2024-07002, engineering services for wastewater treatment plant flocculation tank walkways, or catwalks, as we've also referred to them as.
That's what I was talking about earlier.
Any board member have any questions on 002? None being heard. Mr. Costello.
The next resolution is at page 88 of the packet, 2024-07003, payment for emergency rebuilding of water treatment plant lead high lift pump number 2.
If I'm, Mr. Chair, if I'm reading this correctly, we've already done the work. This is just authorized to pay it, correct?
Yes, so these are the first 3 invoices they've submitted. We expect 1 or more additional invoices, but this would authorize payment, and this process started, they were here in late March or very early April. So they're looking for payment, and we need the board's authority to do so.
Just to confirm, Molly, we have an IDIQ with, or?
No, they were just available to come in on an emergency basis to try to fix that pump when it went out of service.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on 003? None being heard. Go to 4, please, Mr. Costello.
Page 95 of the packet, Resolution 2024-07004, accepting CPL proposal for Beach Avenue Water Tank and Water Main Engineering Services.
I see that CPL is here. Mr. Myers, please. So, Mr. Myers, it's my understanding, don't hold me to the date, but the Beach Avenue Water Tower has been out of service for probably 25 to 26 years.
Yes,
Okay, it's full of air, like a lot of people. Right?
there's some water in it,
Yeah.
but yeah,
All right, some water because the top's open,
yes.
right? So CPL is proposing to get this tank back online,
Yes,
and you recently had an inspection done.
yes.
That's good news,
Mhm.
because for the longest time, we've been talking about the demolition of it and building a new one, an above-ground pump station. So,
You're still gonna need a pump station, though.
well, all right,
Yeah.
well, I'm saying an above-ground tank with a pump station,
Mhm.
so. And we're not gonna hold you to this. How long do you think, before we can start putting water in there? If everything.
I
went-
would think by the end of next year or fall. If we get going on it now,
2020.
And that would give us another 1,000,000 gallons,
to,
or an additional 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great news.
I mean, the plans can be developed this year, bid it late this year, early next year. Possibly get the tank painted and that work done in the spring. Pump station could be installed in the water main in the summer and possibly put it online by the fall or late fall.
Are we talking fall 2025, correct?
Yes,
When you say water main, do we gotta do that connection,
I believe that is part of it, the 20-inch main.
is that the one under Conrail?
I don't know.
Boy, that would be one project there, huh? Under the railroad tracks?
I don't think it is, but
I don't believe that section is,
No.
but it is connected. It's the Beach Avenue main and the Beach Avenue tank. The main connects to the tank, so the recommendation is to award them as one project since they're a interrelated mass, and we certainly wouldn't want to install a main only to find that we had to cut it open in order to install the pump station or some other issue came up.
Mm-hmm. I don't have any other questions. Any board member have any
Yes,
questions?
I
at
have
all?
a few questions.
Mr.
If
Sirianni?
something hasn't run in 20 years, why do we need it now?
Because your system is lacking the requirements for water storage. The storage by 10 state standard says you should have enough supply for one day, I believe, or 2 days. And that would be 20 million, and you right now have 3.
Is that mandatory?
Well, it's not mandatory, but those are the recommendations by,
I mean, with the
The state-
population of the city of Niagara Falls, what this was kind of designed for, our population is way down. Has there been ever any issue that we've run out of water or?
there's been issues where you've been close.
Really
Yes.
close.
Because a project like this, $1.5, $2 million, usually there's a 20-year life span on repainting the inside and stuff like that.
Well, the new coatings last a lot longer than previous ones. Okay, you can get almost 30 years or more. Actually, the exterior coating on that tank is still being able to be recoated for probably 80% of it.
And is there any other options available to us?
Well, your
I
other
mean, you said
option
a
was to
lift
tear it
station.
down and put a new tank there.
Well, that would be more costly. I know that.
Yes, it would.
Yeah. What's the capacity we have now, 2 or 3 million?
You have 2 million, I think, down at 56th Street, and I think 1 million in Clearwell.
And what would this give us? An additional
2,
2? So we have around 3 million capacity right now.
yeah.
May I? for a
It would
second?
almost double.
With our
would almost double.
infrastructure, we get one really serious break and we're looking at a possibility of losing. So having redundancy is not the worst thing in the world.
No, Mike, what did you say? I didn't hear you.
Well, with this tank, we'd be almost doubling our reserve bid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
We got a couple of near misses.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions for Mr. Myers? None, thank you. All right, Mr. Costello, where are we at here?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to add one additional note. The additional pumping station and the storage tank also will help equalize pressures throughout the system. So hopefully we can operate at a little bit lower pressure and have fewer main breaks. We don't have to pressurize the entire system from one point here.
Yeah, anytime you add storage in your system, it does a number of things, right? It provides redundancy, which is probably one of the biggest things that you need in water. Provides extra stability for fire suppression. We already understand that the northern part of the city, and particularly the DeVoe area, there are streets with about 42 pounds of pressure. Now we're coming out of this plant right now at about probably 70 pounds, 72, right? So we're losing 30 pounds of pressure between here and some of the farthest points in the city. And a lot of that is tuberculation through breaks, broken valves, all those things that are, that you have in a water system. And to put that redundancy back in our system, it's a safeguard. It's a huge safeguard for a lot of reasons. Our pipes in some areas of the city are over 100 years old. We had a big failure on 42nd Street, 47th Street, 2017, maybe 2018.
17.
Concrete water transmission line. We were losing water by the gods, right? We were on the news every day for a month and a half. And luckily, we can draw water from Niagara County, but that's not the fix-all for us. Because if Niagara County needs the water, guess what they do? They close the valve, and we're on our own. We can't take water from anybody else. So this is the best option that we've seen in a long time with the water tank. Why they took it out of service, difficult to understand.
Approximately when it was taken out of there.
Well, I've been on the board since 2007, and that's been a question that's been asked. Well, it was for height. Yeah, right. No, I understand that. That's why this has got to be modified. Yeah. But they could have left it in service. They could have modified it and kept it in service. I don't understand it.
Sean, a question on that too. When we pay for it, $2 million or whatever it is, do we bond that or does it come out of our fund balance? How do we do that?
So we have a grant that covers roughly half the cost of the
Okay.
project. The other half, we will get EFC short-term funding during the construction phase when we're paying invoices, that when the project is complete, will convert to long-term debt, which is because Niagara Falls is a disadvantaged community, we get subsidized interest or 0% interest on the indebtedness, but it'll become a 20-year note.
Payment. Okay, thank you.
Where are we at here, Mr. Costello?
We are at page 139, CPL Professional Services Extension, Resolution 2024-07005.
Any board member have any questions?
Yeah, I
on-
just have one question.
Go ahead.
I know grant writers are very important bringing money in, but the 60,000, is that regardless of what grants he writes? How does that work?
All of these are on a time and material basis, so if we don't use the services, and the resolution even says that it's non-exclusive, so if we
Okay.
use somebody else for a grant, we can, but
Okay.
it's time and material.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
Any other questions from board member 05?
No.
None being heard.
Proceed, Mr. Costello, please.
Mr. Chairman, the final resolution in the packet is at page 145, Resolution 2024-07006, 2-month moratorium on personnel actions.
Any board member have any questions on 006?
I don't have any questions. Do we discuss it or do we do that at the next meeting?
Next meeting. Anybody have
You know,
anything?
You never discuss?
You can discuss it, Mr. Siriani, but
Pardon?
we'll vote on it next week. Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions or anything that you need on this?
No, there's nothing I need.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody have anything on unfinished business? Old business? New business? The Chair will look for a motion to enter an executive session to discuss matters related to the employment of a particular person.
I'll move to go into executive session.
Move to go into executive session by Board Member Larkin,
Second,
second by Board Member Siriani on the question. None being heard, call the roll, please.
Board Member Asklar,
Yes, to enter executive session.
Board Member Kimball,
Yes, to enter executive session.
Board Member Larkin,
Yes, to enter executive session.
Board Member Siriani,
yes.
Chairman Forster.
Yes.
Motion passes.
We move.
Yeah, we're gonna move into the board. With hurricanes went out of town.
Hi, Renee, can you hear us?
Shot?
She's on, yes.
She can't hear you. She answered.
Hi, Renee, can you hear us?
I don't see her.
She shows up on my screen.
Oh, that's.
I don't actually know why that screen only shows one.
Sean, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Welcome
Okay.
back. Chair will entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
Move it.
Second,
Moved by Board Member Larkin, seconded by Board Member Kimball on the question. None being heard. Call the roll, please.
Board Member Asklar,
Yes, executive session.
Board Member Kimball,
yes.
Board Member Larkin,
Yes.
Board Member Siriani.
Yes.
Chairman Forster.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, that will conclude the July 15th work session agenda. We'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Move it.
Moved by
Second.
Board Member Ashklar, seconded by Board Member Larkin on the question. None being heard. Call the roll, please.
Board Member Asklar,
Yes to adjourn.
Board Member Kimball,
Yes.
Board Member Larkin,
Yes to adjourn.
Board Member Siriani.
Yes.
Chairman Forster.
Yes, thank you, everybody. We'll see some of you next week.
Have a good night, Renee.
All right.
Good night, Renee.